Alright, so I just picked up the Behringer Touch 1, X-Touch 1 controller. And I plan on using this with Studio One. And I just wanted to make a quick overview of how it works. I've only had it a couple of days, but I've kind of got the hang of it. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of how it kind of works with Studio One. Now I was deciding to either get this one or the fader port from PreSonus. And I knew the fader port was going to work well since it's made by PreSonus, but I really like the quality, how this looked. The build seems to be really well, and actually it's built pretty well. Pretty solid, it's got a nice weight to it. And it was just a little bit bigger, which I personally liked myself better. And I like the big wheel, and I like the plastic buttons here, the transport ones instead of the rubber ones. But that's just a personal choice. But so I went ahead and picked this up, and I've gone ahead and plugged it in. And first off, people are probably wondering, do all the buttons work? And yeah, they all work. They all do something. But there's a few here that don't do exactly what's labeled on this on the template, on the Studio One template. And I'll go over a couple of those. But for the most part, they all work. So yeah, it's I can go over a couple of these buttons. We click master level. That's obviously going to adjust your master level. You can see it on the screen. And then when we're on a channel, we can always see mute, solo, and then enable and disable record. And we also got read. That works great. Touch, latch, and write. And what's great is also that you can also click it on the screen. So if I click, let's say solo here, you can see that it selects solo or mute. So it works both ways, which is nice. This one here again is Autopunch, which I don't really use. One thing you can do, although this is the Studio One template, there is a Mackie user mode where you can essentially assign all the buttons to what you want, at least to what Studio One supports, except for these buttons up here. These stay the same. So I think any of these here you can reassign. So I'll probably do that since I don't really use Autopunch. I'll keep the majority the same and just change a couple that I don't use. Then after Autopunch, you got metronome. That works great. And then the marker. The marker is actually a nice feature. I actually like how it works in Studio One. Let me open up a marker track here. And the way the marker works here is you press the marker, and if you play, when you hit record, you'll see that it sets markers anytime I push record. And then to play it back, you can just use the rewind to move through the markers, and you can do it while it's playing. So that works really nice. So that's the marker function or marker button. And then we come to the last buttons down here, and that's the mix. It opens up and closes your mixer. So that's labeled correctly. Then we got inputs. That's also labeled correctly. Now, if you notice down on these, there is no lights. So all these lights did come on, but for some reason these buttons down here, the lights don't come on. And then this other button here, this is the channel. It opens up your channel effects. And then you have inserts. And then this last button here is add send. Okay, so it allows you to add a send. And then this last button is labeled add insert, but for some reason it closes and opens the browser. So that's not working exactly how the template says it's supposed to work. So I'm not sure if that's a bug or what the deal with that is. And in Studio One, there's no way to reassign this, so you would have to go into Mackie user mode and again reassign them to what you want. So that is an option. So these last buttons are a little weird because the lights don't work on these, and then these this lab button here is not actually labeled correctly. But everything else works, the transport works, and this one here is actually, in Studio One, it's set to undo. I don't know if you can read it there. On most templates, I think it's scrub, but I believe Studio One doesn't support scrub, so they chose to make this an undo button. And then we come to the banks. And I haven't really played with this, but I'm assuming you can just switch banks, 8 tracks at a time. And the next one would be the channels. So you can move amongst channels. Now here's where it gets a little tricky, because when it comes to channel selection, there seems to be a disconnect between the Mackie Control and Studio One. If you can see, it changes on the scribble strip, but the DAW doesn't change. And what I found out, it's actually a 2-step process. When you select a channel here, you actually have to press channel select, and then it'll select it on your DAW. So that's kind of I don't know how useful that's going to be, because if you're going to spend actually have to make it a 2-step process, I'm better off just clicking on the DAW. And that's my other point too. It would be nice if you can actually click on the DAW track and have it change on the Mackie, but it doesn't work that way. So something as important as selecting channels, that's kind of a miss when it comes to the controller with Studio One. I'm hoping that it's some kind of fix they can do with the firmware update, or I don't know if it's a limitation with the Mackie Control protocol or Studio One. But if Behringer can fix that, this device is going to be it'll be a winner. So some people aren't going to like that. For now, I'm probably not going to use that too much. Other than when I have to do some automation, I'll select my channel by looking at the scribble strip and then do my automation. Because even if if it doesn't update the DAW, you can still move the fader and it'll move the appropriate channel, even if your DAW has another channel selected. But it can get kind of confusing. So there's definitely a neat fix that would make this a lot better. But so that's the channel selection. And then you have the kind of like a cursor selection here, which moves your channels up and down. But I'm not sure how useful this is, because it doesn't actually change your channel here. We're back to that same issue. What's the point of doing this when I can just click my mouse on the screen? But anyways, that's what the arrows do. And then one nice feature is the zoom. This is something I'll definitely use. When you press the zoom button here, then it'll zoom in and out of your timeline. And then if you do up and down, it shrinks your tracks and makes them bigger. So this is definitely a useful function. So that's kind of a quick overview. Overall, I like it. I'm happy with the device. The only thing is, if they can actually fix that track selection, but that's kind of big. If they were able to make that where it syncs up, either by moving the channels here or by clicking on your DAW, then it would be pretty much a winner. So I'm crossing my fingers. Hopefully they'll provide an update that takes care of that. So leave me any questions or your comments, and I'll try to answer them best I can.